Hello, my name is Bisa, and my god, it's been way too long since I've uploaded on this channel. So, I have been researching the roots of the Chinese indie gacha industry since around the turn of the year 2020, 2021, towards the end of 2020. And just now, a friend of mine has sent me a very interesting looking video about what appears to be the development history of Girls Frontline. It is titled "Making a Waifu Game When Making a Waifu Game Together Goes Horribly Wrong" by Red Joker. Go check them out. The link is, of course, in the description. I don't want to freeload that hard. That title is foreboding, but I can tell you, it doesn't even cover the least of it. This is one of the most integral stories to the history of this entire industry, and I am really pumped to see someone cover this. I do have the video open here, and I did take a look at the description. One of the main sources for this is an article called Yinai Jiming. Yinai Jiming. I think that's how it's pronounced. I have not trained. I have not kept my Chinese up in years, so I'm sorry for anything I butcher in this video. But yeah, this article, it's a chew-up article, Girls Frontline, in the Name of Love, that chronicles the early pre-release development history of Girls Frontline, and it is one of the most foundational pieces of history for this entire industry, and it's something that I've been sitting on top of the entire rest of the history with a video essay script for like 4 years at this point, and I just haven't found the time to do it justice. So seeing this has got me really excited. I want to see what they put together here with this part of the story. So honestly, without further ado, I say we just get right into it and see what they have to say about the development history of Girls Frontline. I'm really excited for this. Let's take a look.
You seen this game recently?
Yes.
Yes, the existence of Girls Frontline 2 implies the existence of Girls Frontline 1. But what
Fantastic
you may
game
not know is the
for its age.
absolute shit show of a game this was behind the scenes before release. And I
Yeah.
don't just mean the broken game. I'm talking betrayals,
But also the broken
and a one-year
hearts.
fight between the devs and the publisher. To the
Hold on. What do we have here? Yes, Yuzhang and Yomeng. Which company is this? Like I said, my Chinese is very rusty. I will butcher a lot of pronunciations in this and whatnot. I can't even read this shit anymore. I can't tell if this is Array or a different company here. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Fight between the devs and the publisher, to the point where we literally had info hidden behind locked doors like a spy movie.
Oh, he's going to cover the April 1st incident. Okay, cool.
And police were literally called.
Yeah.
And the so-called cockroach of gacha games somehow
My
still
beloved.
lives. Today I present
Damn
the
straight.
story behind the Girls Frontline 1. Girls Frontline was primarily born from two men, Yu Zhong and Yao Ming. For simplicity,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call them Zhong and Ming. At the time,
Sure.
they were both students.
Look at that. Oh, that goes way back, that photo. Wow, where'd you find that? God damn. This is from like 2008. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is one of the first ever photos of Mica Team. We don't actually know who these people are except for Yu Zhang here. This is, I believe, Silverwing. She was one of the first artists who joined Mica Team back in the day. And I actually have no idea who this is to this day. Yeah, okay.
Students, and Ming had a vision to create games. Therefore, he created a
Yeah,
forum for
that's...
fan game developers in 2008. And
Wait, hold on, what?
Just gonna call them Zhong and Ming. At the time, they were both students, and Ming had a vision to create games.
Yao Meng isn't in this photo. I hate to tell you, but you know, let's move on.
Therefore, he created a forum for fan game developers in 2008.
Yes, the Chinese Doujin Game Station, correct. The CAC, known as the CAC.
And Zhong happened to be one of the chatters. The two
Yeah.
got along very well as they shared the same ideals, and eventually the
Blue
two
Archive
collaborated
music.
on a fan-made magazine called Chinese Fan Games Magazine.
Oh, okay, hey, cool. Cool that this gets a mention. So The exact title escapes me right now, but this is actually the first ever piece of media published by a Mica team. Though I'm not sure if Yao Meng actually worked on it off the top of my head. I'm not 100%, but yeah.
Didn't sell much, but it established
Yeah,
a
it
strong
didn't sell
relationship
much.
between the two. Fast forward a few
It was mostly that a lot of different Dojin circles collected on the forum Yao Meng created, and they made the magazine. I'm not 100% sure how exactly Yao Ming worked on it, if at all, but why are we censoring him?
years, Ming opened his own studio with a friend in 2011, and in 2012, Zhong approached him with an idea, a
I hate to be that guy, but no. No, he didn't. So what he's referring to here is studio. Is this? Hold on, I do have to check. I don't think this is Chen Kai. So what he's talking about here is he joined Studio Game Master, which was originally founded by Chen Kai. The earliest point to which we can trace it back is in like Christmas season 2007. With the oldest post that I have been able to find from this entire industry. I'll put it up on screen right now. It's this right here is the reason we have Genshin Impact today. It's very funny. But yeah, so the Circle Studio Game Master, they became a pretty integral part of Yao Meng's forum, just like Micah Team did. And because of that, they found each other. And Yao Meng, because of his expertise with networks, server, backend stuff like that, that is why he joined Studio Game Master. And he would do their login system, like their account system, their updaters, their homebrew DRM. They did a lot of stuff like that. And Yao Meng is responsible for all of that. So yeah, he joined Studio Game Master in 2011. It's not that they founded it, but yeah.
in 2011, and in 2012, Zhong approached him with an idea, a story-driven game called Codename Bakery Girl.
It was more of a, hey, we need to salvage these two games we've been working on. It's way too much for us. We know we need help with this. We know it's too much for you as well. Let's scrap them both and make something from all the assets we still have.
Could draw and design the game, but he lacked a
Also, hello,
programmer,
reverse
which
collapse.
Ming's studio had. Ming agreed to the idea, and the two once again collaborated and created Bakery Girl. As you can see, despite the name, it's actually based in a sci-fi military setting. Over its development, the two became very close. They
if you want to know what's up with that name, go and read Girl of the Bakehouse. A link is in the description. It's the first ever game from Micah Team. Long story behind that. I go over it in the video essay. We do not have time for that here right now. This is a reaction video.
Really started living together on the same bunk bed. The game released and they sold some copies.
There it is. That's Girl of the That is not Codename Bakery Girl. I apologize. That is Girl of the Bakehouse. This photo is from 2008, not 2013. These are the copies, the DVDs and the CDs of Girl of the Bakehouse and its soundtrack CD that Yuzheng burned. You can see down here the burner he's using. I think this is his father's flat.
At some Dojin conventions.
Early actual copies, no.
Ming realized a problem. There are no agents.
But also, they were actually living in a small villa that Game Master had. They weren't just bunking together. They were living together in a small villa they had rented out.
Outside,
they were rolling in it.
Games made by people with ideals about games, like for indie games. So why don't I do it? Why don't I become a game publisher? I can fill that role for people. Ming informed Zhong, and they agreed that for the next game, Zhong would develop the game while Ming would handle the publishing. They signed a 50-50 revenue contract, meaning they each get half for the sales of the game. The two trusted each other so much that Ming recalled not even getting a lawyer when signing the contract.
So not only that, he says there wasn't a lawyer. That is a problem, yes, but it wouldn't be a problem if there was a contract. The problem is there was no contract signed. They didn't sign off on anything. That's why it's a problem that there was no lawyer, because that would only be like a legally actionable contract if there was a lawyer there to witness it. If it was just a pure, like, handshake agreement. There wasn't even that. There was only that. No contract, no lawyer to verify it. All on a basis of trust.
Each other so much that Ming recalled not even getting a lawyer when signing
Yeah.
a contract. Zhong's studio would be called Sunborn, and Ming's publishing company would be called Wave Game. At this time, Ming...
Okay, so I'm not actually 100% certain on the Wave Game name. Sunborn, yes. However, they were first known as LBX Network Technology before, I think, just a few weeks later, they rebranded to Sunborn. And then Wave Game, that's actually a really good question. I remember there being branding for Wave Game on the early Japanese website for Ghost Frontline. However, the actual company is called Array Network Technology. I'm not sure if it's a similar situation with Sunborn. I actually haven't found that kind of detail yet.
This time, Ming actually also founded YoStar, which you may know for publishing...
Wait, what?
At this time, Ming actually also founded YoStar, which you...
No, he did not. That's just wrong. I'm sorry. Look, I really do not want to be mean here. I know I'm pausing a lot. I'm correcting a lot. I'm adding a lot to this. I'm genuinely sorry. This is my field of expertise. Yao Meng did not found YoStar. I'm sorry. He is the CEO of the company today, but Yao Meng did not found YoStar. He did not. I'm really sorry. YoStar was... They do say they were founded in 2014, but I think they were only... They were incorporated, I think, only in 2016. And it wasn't Yao Meng. Yao Meng left Game Master, as did everyone else following the release of Codename Bakery Girl. It was Chen Kai, the original Game Master, who went on to build the connections required to do things like overseas publishing and to do things like overseas publishing and such in Japan. And he went on to, under that, with those contacts, to found YoStar in, I believe 2016.
Which you may know for publishing these games, but we won't get into that. That's a different story. And so started development for the game Girls Frontline.
Oh, I'm
Girls
sorry.
Frontline was a mobile strategy RPG.
I'm stupid.
And
Yeah.
Zhong cites Command and Conquer, Red Alert, and Kantai Collection as an inspiration for military waifu designs such as these. They also made microtransactions limited to costumes rather than strong items and characters, as they deliberately wanted to avoid...
You have them right over there. Why are you censoring them?
Feel pressured into spending. Also, they wanted a game far bigger in scale than Bakery Girl, and picked this military niche because there just weren't that many back then. Development started in early 2015.
There was also, the idea was also on their mind because they had just finished their Guns and Girls series of art books.
Sunborn and its small team. It was publicly announced in June and aimed to release by October. But little did they know, disaster was
that did not happen.
The first beta was in August, and the team expected about maybe 1,000 to 2,000 people, and instead 6,000 people showed up. It was no AAA game, but it had its charm and did well within its niche. Both investors and fans were quite happy with its performance too. The second...
There were no investors. This was an entirely indie project. They had no investors. The reason that Yao Meng actually went to found Array was so that they could act as a publisher, because there was no publisher willing to invest in their idea.
Beta test in October would not go so well.
There were
huge upgrades to the game's UI and core gameplay, and in preparation for the first beta's large demand, they prepared 6,000 beta codes. But they were naive. As the test started, 3,000 to 4,000 players tried to log in simultaneously, and the sudden load caused the game's servers to crash. Why?
Yeah.
Well, these guys only had Dojin game experience, aka offline games. The team had...
That's not what Dojin means. In fact, again, Yao Meng's entire reason for being at Game Master was online infrastructure. Dojin is just a term for indie. in the otaku sphere.
Experience with online server architecture and had not optimized the game
Yes, you
for
did.
high concurrency. As in, they
That
didn't
they did
even
not.
know what back-end development was. And
No,
in the end,
they
the
did.
lead programmer's girlfriend had to solve the problem. Damn, he has a girlfriend. With servers going back up.
That is not a detail I've ever seen elucidated on anywhere. What actually happened was that specialists from both companies quabbled over the issue for days on end. The servers were down for longer than the test was initially supposed to run for.
Up in 8
It was
hours.
bad.
This confused fans, but they still enjoyed it. The military waifu niche has loyal fans. Trust me, I have friends that are way too into it. And then the third beta somehow went even worse. The third beta was a little different in nature.
Third?
It was a
Did I mess it up?
final
Did I mix it
beta
up myself?
where players were able to spend actual money in the in.
I would like to mention that I did, in fact, not read the article again before making this video. I just jumped into it because I wanted to watch this.
Game shop, and this data would transfer to their account when the full game released. Unfortunately, within 2 hours, the servers crashed once again. And this time, things would not proceed as smoothly.
This was
Sunborn
where
and
things
Wavegame
really
panicked,
went down.
Hired a bunch of consultants and technicians to find the problem, which ensued chaos because all these consultants and technicians, like 7 or 8 at a time, together, would start arguing with each other over the real cause of the problem. It's
I'm pretty sure they weren't hired in. I'm pretty sure they were already at the companies.
literal comedy. In the end, the problem was speculated to be a very unoptimized database, leading to database congestions when there are too many requests. This conflict took 9 whole days to solve. Yes, the beta test servers were down for 9 whole days. What's worse,
And the beta was only supposed to go for 7.
is their Weibo, or the Chinese equivalent of Twitter, simply crashed and they couldn't give angry and confused players any updates until 1.5 days later. Amazingly, the beta participants spent around 2 million renminbi during those test days.
Renminbi?
So it didn't do bad monetarily, but perhaps because this
Just say
raised the
yuan.
stakes, arguing and endless conflict ensued. Essentially, Sunborn and Wavegame started blaming each other for all the beta test problems. Wavegame said that Sunborn doesn't solve any back-end problem themselves. And
Yeah,
throws
'cause it's not their
everything to
job.
us, giving us only a few hours to fix everything with no time to test. We have to read their code and solve their mess. Sunborn
It is very true. From both sides, both studios were sharing completely undocumented code. Was an absolute mess.
on the other hand, blamed Wavegame for not collecting any data on the third beta
Also
test.
true.
They said that Wavegame did not collect any player data or operational activity data at all and provided no market plan whatsoever. What was the point of the beta if they weren't gonna use its data to improve the game?
Yeah.
Both sides also accused each other of being understaffed. Chinese working culture. Both sides also said they've tried
They didn't
their
have
best to
any
communicate,
money.
and in general, both sides just blamed each other for a lot of stuff. What's worse is, staff of both companies seemed very distressed when interviewed. Oh yeah, speaking of interview, this entire drama was full on public display. Like, you know those kind of YouTuber dramas? Where like, they respond to each other, they're fighting, and people are taking sides? Yeah, it's the same here. Fans were literally picking sides to support,
I want to go back a few seconds here, real quick.
Speaking of interview,
So, you see Yao Meng and Yu Zhong in this image, in this clip right now. But there is another third Chinese gacha legend in this frame right now. You're looking at him. He's not in the front anywhere. Neither of these two. They're not the person holding the camera either. They're all the way back there. My arm's cut off, but they're all the way back here. This guy. This is Zhang Qixiang, who you probably know better as Pharaoh or Umineku or Lowlight or Haimiao. Yeah, he was at Mica Team from 2012 till 2018. I'm sure they'll get to it.
This entire drama was full on public display. Like, you know those kind of YouTuber dramas where like they respond to each other, they're fighting and people are taking sides? Yeah, it's the same here. Fans were literally picking sides to support, speculating on the story, finding evidence to boost one side's argument, and so on. This was also because Zhong and Ming were young people who frequently used social media.
It was
they knew
just
how to
terminally
get
online
audience on
mess.
their side and frequently criticize each other online. It was literally just drama alert, except for 1 fucking year. It was a fucking mess. Thank God Keemstar doesn't know Chinese. What was once an unbreakable friendship had now devolved into endless drama.
Again, this
Ironically,
photo
the
has
third
nothing
beta
to.
test
No,
showed that
they're
the
not both
game
in there.
most certainly had an audience and potential, attracting more investors, and this would lead to the next
Yes,
big
this is where
incident.
investors
At
actually
this
started
point,
coming in.
Sunborn had kinda given up on Wave Game. They wanted a more reliable publishing partner and started seeking one. This is where a company called Windplay Network came into play.
Jinfan.
They were interested in Girls Frontline, and in early March 2016, Windplay representatives actually came to the shared office space between Sunborn and Wave Game, which enraged Wave Game as it felt like a betrayal. Zhong, however, argued he did this to keep everything transparent. On the other side, Ming was pissed off because he said that the conditions that Windplay Network gave were way harsher than the ones he gave, but then somehow Zhong is siding with this other guy rather than him.
Didn't
his
sign a
friend. But on
contract.
the flip side, also in March, Zhong found that Wave Game had authorized another company, Kulai Games, to distribute the Android version of Girls Frontline without Sunborn's involvement. This enraged Sunborn. Ming claims that there were talks, but he didn't sign the contract in the end, so legally it hadn't been executed. But
Not quite. He did in fact sign that contract and stamp it off. Hulai hadn't signed it.
it was too late. Both parties had already tried to replace each other, and there was no saving this business relationship. So the day after, the two tried negotiating a termination of contract. You know, the one that they signed without any lawyers? It only
The one they didn't
escalated
sign in
more
the
from
first
here.
place.
After discussion, they did somehow come up with a draft of the termination agreement, and both of them
Yes.
signed it. But then, the document mysteriously disappeared the next day. Apparently, Ming took it, like physically just stole it before it could be executed to...
I'm gonna be real. At this point, the timeline in the actual article gets very, very, very weird. It's less that the document disappeared, it's more that the termination agreement itself was still more of a draft and not really legally binding, and they hadn't actually made a new contract. They agreed on new terms that were much more favorable in favor of Sunborn, but again, no actual contract was signed.
protect his own interests because he claims Zhong made insane demands. This disappearance made Sunborn extremely paranoid, and they suspected that Wave Game had powerful backers, especially because Ming was quite a powerful guy. Like, he was already the CEO of Yostar at the time. Sunborn
No, he
figured that the code
wasn't.
and
No, he wasn't. Yostar did not exist yet. As a corporate entity, at least.
and assets of Girls Frontline might be taken. I mean, it was their game. Because of this, they quite
That's
literally
NeuroCloud.
fled the office. As in, they stopped going to work and locked the joint office door.
Also, not quite. Sorry, this sounds like I'm nitpicking at this point, but... So, what happened? It's not that they stopped going to work and stopped working on the game at the joint office space. This was specifically on... It wasn't a joke, but this did in fact happen on April 1st, where they physically locked the usually just electronically locked doors of their offices. So I'm sure they'll cover it, but this was actually just a specific incident, not like a recurring thing.
So Wave Game couldn't get in, like get the computer.
They weren't locked out like
On the
that,
same day
no.
of this incident, Wave Game employees showed up at the office, only to find it locked. It was supposed to be an electronic lock, but the door was even locked
Correct.
physically,
Yes.
leading Wave Game staff to think it was a theft. This office was technically shared property, so Wave Game staff found a locksmith to unlock the door. But when Sunborn employees went back to have a look at the office, they found the door lock pried open with Wave Game staff inside. This led to a direct confrontation between the two sides, and heated arguments ensued, to the point where police was called to stop it.
Police was actually called the moment I forgot to switch the fucking scene again. I'm really sorry. I'm bad at this. Can you tell I haven't done this in like 3 years? So, yeah, no. The police was called when the Sunborn employees realized that the locks had been pried open. They didn't even go in to check what was going on. They were overly cautious. But yeah, the RA employees arrived. This was April 1st, which, again, very funny on principle. But, yeah. They had locked the doors because they thought that someone behind RA may be willing to physically steal the software packages for Girls Frontline. So they had locked the door physically, and when RA couldn't get in with their electronic lock passes, they called a locksmith because they could, prove that they worked there. And when Sunborn employees arrived, they saw that the lock had been pried open, called the police, and hijinks ensued. Very funny if it wasn't the darkest day in both of these studios' lives.
At this point,
up to that point,
it's clear that there was no salvaging the two sides' relationship.
And they still tried.
They both realized that Girls Frontline wouldn't be able to go anywhere until they resolve this partnership. Like, the game's already been delayed at that point. Throughout April, they held multiple meetings, even with investors and mediators. Ming and Zhong even verbally reaffirmed their partnership in almost ceremonial fashion, saying how they will absolutely work together in an oath. But this never got turned into a contract.
Yes.
Fell apart. The two sides
3 times, never signed.
Literally every meeting was just full of lawyers and voice recorders to collect evidence.
No lawyers.
Finally,
just distrust.
They came to an agreement. Kind of. WaveGame had enough and just begrudgingly exited the project. However, they held assets like user info and purchase records from the third beta and refused to give them without compensation. Ming claiming that they didn't care about making a profit, but at least wanted to recoup WaveGame's costs. About 6 million renminbi. Sunborn, on the other hand, voided their previous talks and deals with Windplay for legal reasons, like, when negotiating with WaveGame and stuff, and went with another publishing company, Digital Sky. However, they refused to pay the compensation WaveGame wanted. Instead, they found a very complicated workaround for when the game released. Players from the beta would be able to manually verify their final account status using payment receipts, and Sunborn would manually compensate any missing purchased items or currency when the game launched. Manually!
I do
one by
not
one!
remember this part of the article.
Biggest haters of the generation! But if they
I'll have to
didn't
check
want to
that.
pay WaveGame, this was possibly the only way to ensure beta players didn't lose their purchases. This made WaveGame super mad. For over a year after launch, the website...
They can do it.
Frontline.com, which was controlled by WaveGame, displayed an open letter airing WaveGame's side of the story, effectively a public protest against Sunborn's actions, while the actual game operated on a different domain. But despite all the hate, all the drama, that was it. The game somehow miraculously managed to release in China on May 20th, 2016. Before I move on, I do want to say that to not make this video like 45 minutes long, I just went over all the major conflicts.
I feel called out. The script is like an hour and a half.
And events, skimming some details. There's this interview with both Zhong and Ming, so there's a really detailed account of I did this because this, or I suspected this, or you changed because of this, and a lot of complicated mind game blaming and holy copium stuff. It's a mess. There was also a whole ordeal about Zhong wanting more money from Ming to make the game, but Ming turned it into a loan, and then they went back and forth, and the amount kept changing. And yeah, just know I went over all the important and major conflicts on this timeline. I'll leave the interview in
It's also, like I said, it's also a really, really, really messy timeline, even in that article. It's laid out in a way that makes it a satisfying read in terms of a satisfying story, but the actual chronology of things is very confusing in that article.
Although it's in Chinese, I hope Google Translate is enough. The initial launch of
I can link The English translated version. Thanks, TL Anon. Praise be TL Anon for translating that. I'll leave a link to that in the description.
The game was a great success. By September, they had already hit over 1 million registered player accounts.
The game was a
incredible
massive
for a new
success.
strategy game. People love the non-pay-to-win aspect of the gacha, as only skins were gacha. Over time, I keep hearing about how amazing the story is, especially the fact that it actually has a
Are we gonna talk about him?
ending to the story, which is rare in gacha games. Oh, also, there weren't any more large-scale server crashes like the beta. I assume thanks to Digital Sky.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, the game wasn't viral. It was no Genshin or Star Rail. In fact, it wasn't even top 10 in China's iOS store.
Relatively
Considering the
speaking,
small
it
team
was
that
a
developed the game,
big
it was
deal.
a financial success. So much so that they were able to make a full remake of Bakery Girl, including everything they originally wanted back then, but couldn't, to fulfill their
Not quite. It blew up so far in scope that they did not actually manage to fit everything in they originally wanted. So Reverse Collapse 2 win.
their creative vision. As Girls Frontline released in regions across the world, it did pretty good. Modestly in Western countries, and really good in Japan and Korea. Particularly Korea. They were super into it. Like, it had its own
Not for long, though. Not for long. Korea fell off fast.
beta and everything, and the Korean servers literally reached 1 million players in a few weeks. That's faster than China! It hit #1 on Google Play's
that is
top
true.
grossing in Korea at
It
one
did
point,
go
and was
at the start.
among the top games
It
in the
went
first months of
really
release,
hard.
which wasn't seen in any other country.
Again, it
Even
really
in
started
Japan,
falling
it
off after
didn't
like a
break
year or
top
two,
10.
though.
Although that might be because the Japan launch was severely delayed. The game was
Yeah.
supposed to launch in 2016, but you know, yeah. It took until 2018 August to release, through Sunborn making its own subsidiary, Sunborn Japan, to publish the game. The series grew. We even got a
So-
spin-off like Nero Cloud, an anime adaptation, and
So, an additional point to note there with the Japan launch is that it was, in fact, because Wave Game, I'm already using the fucking Wave Game, Array was supposed to take care of the original JP launch. That didn't happen because Array closed their doors. However, it was basically immediately afterwards that Yao Ming went back to Chenkai and he was like, hey, yeah, I've been setting up my own publishing business. Let's get this thing off the ground. And they founded YoStar in 2016, very shortly after Girls Frontline originally launched. And their first thing that they wanted to do was to get back and get Girls Frontline out in Japan. They wanted to get that deal done and over with. So, because Chenkai had the kinds of contacts that were needed to get people in Japan to actually publish the game for them, they went to Yao Ming, who went like, hey, I know we fucked this shit up. Let's do a blank slate, actually set this up properly, like actual businesses, and we'll get this game released in Japan ASAP. Because it's already supposed to be out, and it's not. We fucked that up. We're gonna go. They even signed a contract this time. Things still went sideways when Yuzhong found a studio that was willing to do it faster, cheaper, and with more favorable conditions for Sunborn than YoStar. Now, he did ask them to publish it. They said yes, and he did get a contract. However, he had not signed it. Yao Ming had caught him before he could sign it off, and he was like, hey, okay, you know what? We'll make the terms more favorable, and we'll make damn sure that this gets done as fast as possible, faster than these guys can tell you. But they didn't have any infrastructure of their own yet, so they had to find someone else to do it, so they went out and found a small struggling studio that was willing to do it for cheap and very quickly. So they sold the rights to Girls Frontline to that studio. Sold it because that way they could get funds and resources in order to provide things such as on-site specialist support and such from the outside so that the studio didn't have to hire more people, which they couldn't afford. The problem is that because of all... This is such a silly story. The problem is that this studio was the exact same studio that Yuzhong had already found and hit up. And because of the delay in bureaucracy, the studio went bankrupt from purchasing the rights to Girls Frontline, and the rights to Girls Frontline went under with the studio. That is why it took 2 more years from being the first overseas server that was supposed to release to being the last to release. And then having to release under the name of Dolls Frontline, because they couldn't get the rights to the name Girls Frontline anymore, because they had gone under. It is such a stunning blunder of communication, even though they did everything else in this in that particular relationship right. It's such a mess, man.
Even the sequel now, Girls Frontline 2, it had the reputation
Come on, man.
of being the cockroach
Sorry.
of gacha games because it wasn't profiting as much as the...
Man, Neural Cloud was so good! The fact that that game didn't get anyone to play it. Neural Cloud was so good! Seriously, if y'all want a good gacha to just play like on the side, easy pick up and play, it's an auto chess, it's really fun. It's pretty much finished. All the content you would want is there. They're still rotating characters here and there. It's essentially on life support, not end of service. Micah doesn't kill their games. Like you said, cockroach of the industry. Go play Neural Cloud. It's fantastic.
Neural Cloud, an anime adaptation, and even the sequel now, Girls Frontline 2. It had the reputation of being the cockroach of gacha games because it wasn't profiting as much as the big hitters, but it just never ended service, probably because of how much Jung loved his military girls and story. Unfortunately, there was also one more pretty big issue in 2024 regarding license. Essentially, Sunborn's cooperation agreement with Digital Sky would end on December 31st.
Girls Frontline was forced into end of service for a few months.
2024. So without the proper license, the Chinese servers would have to stop service on that day, over 8 years after release.
Yeah.
Sunborn did emphasize they wanted to bring the game back in
and they
another
did
form
quite
that
quickly,
kept players'
actually.
Progress. While the mobile version is still down, they did successfully relaunch the game on Steam in China, letting players go
and
back
everyone
to their
can
old
keep their
progress.
accounts as well.
And this was only a China thing. Every other region was not affected. It never went down.
Because it's self-published by Sunborn, or in the case of Korea and Taiwan, by XD Game.
The story of Girls Frontline development is genuinely batshit insane. This was literally YouTuber beef aired live, except it was 2 goddamn companies fighting, each with their own faction with everything seen by fans online. What the hell is this? It is very sad to see a friendship as close as Jung and Ming's break
Please stop
down
using
like
this photo. Yao Meng is not in
I
it.
Really say one betrayed the other. It's just business, right? Moral of the story: don't do business with your friends. If you still want them to be your
honestly,
friends.
That's a fantastic... Yeah, that's...
Special thanks to Vicente Pagani and all the other patrons and members for supporting the channel.
That's actually a really good moral to end on. So, I'm mixed on this. Overall, the story, very well boiled down. I will say that. But some of the... Especially early on, I'm sorry... This stuff is my marmalade. This isn't just my jam, this is my marmalade. Some of the early stuff here really ticks me off. But overall, again, I don't want to be mean. This was a really fun video. It's a fun way to show the history of Girls Frontline, and yeah. It's a good adaptation of the In the Name of Love article. Like I said, I'll link that down in the description below for you to read. It's an English translated version. There's also, of course, the link to this video if you want to watch it in full without me pausing and yapping everywhere, and down there as well. If nothing else, please go there, leave a like, and leave the video running in the background so that they get, the algorithmic boost from it. Despite the the few misses at the start, they deserve it. This was a really fun video. Let me see here. Oh wow, this was only released earlier today. Oh, I'm quick on the draw here. I was just sent this, like I said. Okay, well, again, like I said, go show Red Joker some love. This was a really fun video, a great adaptation of the In the Name of Love article. Man, I really need to get to that. I really need to get to that script one day and make that video essay. Well, thank you all very much for watching. This was a fun little thing to do. And frankly, this video ended up being a lot better than I expected from the opening. So, all's well that ends well, I guess. Thank you all very much for watching. My name's been Bisa, and whenever the next time we see each other is, until then, have a good one.